Hey everybody, Questwise here, and today we're going to be talking about a role-playing game that is newish to the market in a sense that it's been picked up by a new company, and but has a history. It goes back probably almost a decade. It includes a role-playing game, a miniatures game, and a card game, as well as some other iterations as well too, some fiction and stuff. The game we're talking about today is Legend of the Five Rings. This is put out by Fantasy Flight Games. They also produce a living card game version of this, as well as a board game version as well too. Today we're going to be focusing on just the role-playing game, and I have to say I am really falling in love with this game. Now, I've played previous iterations as far back as the original card game, and some of the Clan War box set that was part of the miniatures game originally as well too. So I've had some history with this before, and I've played, like I said, I've played previous iterations of the role-playing game, but I'm new to the Fantasy Flight version, and man, it is good. So let's dive into it a little bit, and we're going to talk about what it is that makes this game so unique and so awesome, in my opinion. First of all, it's samurai. If you don't know what Legend of the Five Rings is, it is fantasy Japanese samurai action, but much more than that. It's not just about hacking and slashing. It's not just about drawing your katana and killing things. It is about honor, and it is about intrigue, and it is about courtly duties, and it is about bushido, and all these things incorporated. Now, the previous editions of this was a very a narrative type of game, and Fantasy Flight has really captured that feel as well too. And what I think is really amazing about the Fantasy Flight version is that I feel as if they are trying to blend those two things together. They're trying to use their new narrative dice system, which was also seen in the Star Wars role-playing game by Fantasy Flight Games, of course. But I wasn't a fan of the way the narrative dice system worked in Star Wars. You can also see this in like Genesis and some other games that they're putting out now as well too. But I feel like the narrative dice system that is being used in this, it's slightly different from the way it is in the Star Wars game, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But I feel like the narrative dice mechanic that Fantasy Flight has created works superbly well with Legend of the Five Rings, but still echoes back. Some of the mechanics in this game echo back to previous editions, which I feel like is a nice blend for people who were fans before and they're new fans now, so that there's a sort of a blending of the two cultures, if you will, in this one game. First off, the book is beautiful. This thing is extremely well created. It's very well made, but the layout is immaculate. The artwork, and again, Fantasy Flight, I think every product they've ever put out has had amazing artwork and a very high attention to detail in the layout style, as well as the artwork artists that they draw from. This sort of blends sort of like traditional Japanese art along with new, high resolute. It's just beautiful, and you'll see some of the pics that I post up here and floating in the air about my head, and you'll just see how beautiful some of the stuff really is. Aside from that, the gameplay is crunchy. I should point that out first and foremost. This is going to be a game that's crunchier than 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, but not as crunchy as, say, Shadowrun or Burning Wheel, if you're familiar with those. It's sort of a nice medium in between those two. The narrative dice system that's used in this is interesting in that the dice themselves don't have numbers, they have symbols. And you're going to add your attribute score, your skill score, which is a number of skill dice, and whatever ring you're going to be used. Now, ring, you might be thinking, what is the ring? The rings that I am referring to are from the title Legend of the Five Rings. Now, the idea of the Legend of the Five Rings is drawn from a traditional Japanese book called The Book of Five Rings, written by Miyamoto Musashi, who is a legendary Japanese swordsman who later in life created this thing called the Book of Five Rings. And the five rings are thus: earth, air, fire, water, and void, void is sort of subjective. It is everything and it is nothing. It's that idea of sort of peace and chaos sort of wrapped into one thing. All the others are pretty self-explanatory in that they are the elements that create everything. But the five of those together create what we see in existence, in life. And they're used in this game to represent different stances or philosophies that your character will take in order to achieve something. So for instance, if you want to fight somebody, but you want to fight somebody very vigorously or violently, you're going to use your fighting skill, whatever that might be, martial arts, melee, something like that, and you're going to use the fire ring, the fire stance, right? Because fire depicts passion and aggression and creativity. And so if you want to attack somebody with gusto and with violence and with speed, you're going to use the fire ring. Every ring in your character sheet has a certain stat, and you're going to roll a number of dice equal to that stat. When you put the two pools together between attributes, skills, skill dice, and ring dice, and roll them together, you're going to get a number of results. You're going to add up any sort of successes that you might get, as well as any sort of exploding symbols, which are these cool little like lotus symbols. Exploding dice do just that. They're going to explode. You're going to get to roll an additional die. Where the kicker comes in, and where the two old school meets new school in the rules system, is that you're only going to be able to keep a number of results equal to your ring score of that particular stance that you're taking. So if you had 2 attribute dice or 2 skill dice and you had 3 ring dice, you can only keep 3 of the 5 dice that you roll, 3 of the 5 things. That's going to add a whole new aura, a whole new level of sort of gameplay and decision making, because of course, obviously you'd want to keep all your successes, but some of the dice have a stress or strife symbol on them as well too, which is represented by a small leaf icon. The thing with strife, though, is it builds up, and you add that to your character sheet, or you add some tokens to your pool in front of you, and once your strife level reaches a certain point, it's basically a break in your a sort of mental break or emotional break. The key to this is you're playing in a very high society where honor is more important than steel. That's kind of their tagline, right? Bushido is this code that all samurai live by. And it makes people it's a very sort of like structurally cultural type of way of living, in that sometimes honor is higher than loyalty, and sometimes loyalty is higher than honor, and sometimes honor is more important than love. And there's all this sort of structure of things, how it goes. And the book goes into detail about what Bushido is and what it means. And when you're creating a character, which is an interesting process we'll get to in a minute, it will ask you the questions of how important Bushido and the code of Bushido is to you. And that means in certain things of being sort of emotionless, that being sort of calm and not showing your emotions. And once you receive enough strife and you hit that break limit, what happens is that sometimes things happen. Sometimes you're in the presence of the emperor himself, and your stress level, your strife level reaches that peak, and you break point, and out comes something stupid from your mouth. Or you make a violent act and smash a pot, which is going to lower your level of honor, your level of sort of depiction of how the emperor perceives you. Now he's going to look at you in sort of a lower state. So there's all these different things in this game that are coming together and blending to make a beautiful, beautiful story. The game is meant to tell a story of a very narrative type of story building, in that action, like violence and warfare are very, very deadly, and thus you want to make sure that you're very well versed in those arts, or if you're not, maybe, avoiding those situations. But I think that this game also gives you a very good sense of being able to tell a story in a grand scheme, that you could tell entire campaigns, entire storylines without any violence at all. There's the ability to become a bushi, which is the warrior caste, sugenja, which are sort of priest-like. They speak with spirits. They can draw upon the different rings for special effects. There's courtiers, which are just that. They are emissaries, and they are diplomats, and they are people who tend to different shoguns and to the emperor himself. There are also the different clans, and the clans are all sort of united into the one central empire, which is called the Emerald Empire, under the reign of the emperor himself. The problem is the clans all have different sort of philosophies and backgrounds and views of things, and so they're constantly sort of rubbing and bumping against each other, and sometimes there's outright war between different clans and such. And there's also the imperial families, which are not part of the clans. They're part of the descendants of the emperor himself, and they are sort of a clan within themselves. But some of the clans include, like, the Lion Clan, which are very ferocious warriors, the Crane Clan, which tend to be more diplomats and sword masters, the Unicorn, which is one of my favorites, which is a clan that actually left the empire for a time and came back decades later, having sort of picked up new techniques and tactics and philosophies from these horde-like Mongol-type clans and stuff from outside the empire. So they're kind of seen as being rough and brash and sort of not part of the empire because of the different philosophies that they've integrated into themselves. There's the Scorpion Clan, which tend to be keepers of secrets and darkness, and they're not very well trusted, and that's where a lot of the shinobi or ninja clans sort of grow out. There's the Crab Clan, who guard against the empire from along the Kaiju Wall, which keeps the Shadowlands and demons and other unsavory creatures out of the empire itself. And there's a bunch of others too. There are minor clans, and like I said, the imperial families and stuff as well too. This game has so much depth and so much richness that you could play for years and years with this game and never see the whole thing. I think it's got a wealth of amazingness that just oozes out. Now, to say oozes out if you like sort of feudal Japanese samurai stories. If not, this is not going to be the game for you. This is a very specific game, and it has a very specific story to tell. But if you love the idea of samurai, you love the idea of fantasy sort of samurai stories, feudal Japanese mixed with magic and mythological creatures and stuff, then this is the game that you've been looking for. And I think that the narrative dice system that they're using for this works really well. Now, previously I said that I didn't like the way that it was used in Star Wars, and I didn't. It just didn't feel very Star Wars to me. Again, my very personal opinion, I know I have lots of friends out there who love the Fantasy Flight Star Wars iterations. I'm really a big fan of the old D6 version, and that's always going to be my favorite Star Wars version. It feels much more cinematic to me. Fantasy Flight version just didn't really cut it for me. And again, like I said, it's my personal opinion. But using the same narrative dice system with some slight changes with this game, I think fits it beautifully, because it's just that type of story that this game is trying to tell. Well, like I said, it's going to be a little bit crunchy. It did take me a little while to wrap my head around this, but having played some of the previous iterations of this game, I feel like I was a little bit ahead of the curve. I understood what it meant by roll and keep, and I understood some of the ideas of clan schools and stuff as well. So those are things that I think a new player might have a little bit more trouble with, but all in all, it's a great game. It's a beautiful game. Now, they do offer a beginner's box, which is fantastic. You get a full set of dice. You get pre-made characters. You get a cool, great starting adventure. You get a bunch of maps and tokens and stuff as well, too. And it's a great deal. It's for a very fair price. You're getting a lot of great stuff. The dice alone, the set of dice that you get in there are worth the price of admission for the thing. What's interesting about this game is that it does need proprietary dice. It does need a special set of dice. And some people don't like that as well. Early on that used to be kind of a turn-off to me, because I have tons of other dice, but they can't be used in this game. But the more and more I read into this game, the more and more I start to live with this game and start to dive into it, I really, really appreciate the way that the dice work in this. And it doesn't seem like so much of a burden to have to use proprietary dice with special symbols on them. Again, the artwork is amazing. The gameplay is amazing. There's a chance for very in-depth storytelling. There's several other channels out there on YouTube that you can see people actually playing the game. They're very, very well done. Maybe at some point I'll do an actual live play of this game. I can't wait to get some new friends together who have never tried this, because I think I've talked to several friends of mine here in the local area who are very interested in that sort of Asian sort of storytelling and that sort of feudal Japanese era, but I've never tried Legend of the Five Rings, and I can't wait to get them to a table to show them just how awesome this game is, how much I've loved it over the years and stuff as well too. I could talk about this game for hours and go on and on and on, but I think that, you know, what I've captured here today should be enough for you, if you've been kind of on the fence about this game, to go out and grab this thing. This game is amazing. And like I said, it is beautiful. Fantasy Flight Games hit it out of the park once again. Legend of the Five Rings. Go and check it out. Highly recommended by Questwise. Until next time, that's all I got to say about this subject. Happy New Year. It is New Year's Eve as I record this, so for all of you, Happy New Year, and may 2019 be a blessed, blessed year for you. But I'm Questwise, and until next time, I'm out.